Okay, introduce yourself for those who might not know who you are.
So, I am Raz from the Tats Crew, one of the original members of Tats Crew, other known as Juan Otero.
Okay, let's jump right into it. From the start, what borough or neighborhood are you from?
So it's funny you ask, 'cause I was always just jumping around neighborhoods growing up as a kid in New York City, where you came from different parents, or not different parents, but your parents were divorced. So I kind of lived a little part in Manhattan between, like, let's say I lived anywhere from 103rd Street and Broadway or Washington Heights. That's where I lived, and then eventually I ended up just kind of staying more of my time, and then later in my youth, being part of the Bronx in Castle Hill. That's where I started kind of meeting some of the guys from United Artists when I started gravitating towards graffiti.
Okay, so how was it like growing up as a kid in the Bronx around that time?
It was cool, but it wasn't as dangerous. Like, so I had, I before this whole grafting came in, I was always about music. And I always had to have like these boom boxes. My mother always spoiled me, so I used to have these huge JVC, Sharp, you name them, shits with 20 batteries if they had to. And I was a little piece of shit walking around Washington Heights with a boom box, but it was super cool. I never got robbed. I never got robbed because I had, like, I don't know what it was, man. I must have had like some kind of guardian angel or some shit like that. Yeah, man.
Okay, what else type of activities were you into as a kid?
So I was into photography. I love photography. Photography was like my gateway to art. And I also did like to dance a lot. So, spend a lot of time during my teen years going to clubs like, Palladium, the Funhouse, Danceteria, places like that. And you connect with other people in that kind of music culture.
Okay, when did you start noticing writing on the trains or the walls?
Wow. So I lived at that time on 125th Street and Morningside. And I used to go to this comic book store and I would steal comic books with this other kid. He used to write KD. He was really good. And he was the one that kind of showed me a little bit about what graffiti was. And going up to the L over here on 125th Street and watching trains, but I was not thinking that I was ever going to gravitate to be a graffiti writer. I just liked it, followed it. I never thought I would, up until when I moved to Castle Hill. That's when I really said, that's it.
Okay, what can you remember from the first piece that you saw, and what type of influence did that have on you?
The first piece I saw, so again, this goes back to 125th Street. I saw a Skeme and a Dez piece. It was on Broadway. It was like the one with the back on Broadway, that character, that mean-looking character. And I kind of associated that. Now, true story is that that day that I saw that piece, it was on 125th Street, and it just so happens that that's where I came across meeting Keith, a.k.a. Dez. And it was kind of like a simple conversation, nothing crazy. But later along in this whole graph game and this and that, he recognized me, he remembered me, so I always had respect for him, and he always had respect for me. I wasn't looked at like I was like a toy or anything like that.
Okay, so what was your mindset like? Was it like you wanted to paint trains now, or what?
My mindset now, presently, right now, if I would,
No, when you first got into it.
when I first got into it, no, I didn't know if I was cut for that, because I was like afraid of the third rail. And then there was the first time I really went out and painted a train was with Poem. And Poem was one that I was like, this dude was literally, he would fucking be touching the third rail. He was like, as long as you don't touch this and this, you're fine. I was like, that's all right, you can keep it over there. But I wanted to go on a train. I figured, how can I do this? How can I make a train into a canvas?
Okay, who were some of the artists that was up at the time?
So definitely United Artists, TMT, CIA, like these guys, like the Dondies, and these are people in the, these are the people that you look at and you're like, I try to copy shit like that back then when I was scribbling in my book. One of my favorite pieces of all time was the one that Futura did, where he did that train with all the abstract shit. That was like, wow.
Okay. Are those the artists that inspired you to start writing?
I'm gonna tell you the truth. It was Zephyr, one for the name, Futura for the abstract and what graffiti was, and the only time I ever saw a Dondi piece was the one with the hand. Children of the Grave, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the
or
first time.
yeah, because I think Scene did the what Children of
Of the
Hands of Doom or something like
Hand of
that.
Doom. Yeah.
Okay.
So then it kind of clicked in. I was like, I want to learn that shit.
Okay. At what age did you start writing, and can you remember what year?
Uh, what age? I'm gonna say, you know, 1980 was where I can go back and say that I can remember, because 80 was like for me, it was like starting to hang out with United Artists. United Artists back then, we're talking about, it was like Sin, Breeze, Too Bad, Jam 2, KO. These. Well, they're not all United Artists, but this was a Castle Hill crew. And that's when I was like, you know what, I want to learn this shit. But I still didn't do it until I started hanging out with Jest. And the first wall I painted with him was the I Love New York, where the Smurfs. It was on Citibank, on Newbow and Castle Hill. I think it was Newbow. And that's why I said, all right, I'm going to learn how to paint. But my biggest fear was always having control. Like, straight
control?
lines. Till this day, I still got that same shit, you know. But whatever, you know. You put out there what you could and express it, and people will understand it and look at it like, okay, we get it, what he's doing. So I didn't think a lot of my work needed to be explained because it explained itself.
Okay.
And you know, I explained more through colors. I was always a color person. Like I was one of the first, not one of the first, if anything, one of the first ones that came around started using floral paint. Buy on them, I'm like, what the fuck is this? But they liked the odor to it because it was low odor. Now, if it was summer, the paint would fade in a matter of days. In the winter, it lasted. But that kind of part of my graffiti thing became more and more bigger when I finally blew up with Tats CRU.
Okay.
We went on a rampage. We went on a big rampage. We were like, you know what? We're gonna put this shit out. And we were always a tight crew. Regardless that I would go paint with other riders. It was like, you know, you needed to go. It was like a drug. You're gonna go get high with it, you know. And I got high with other riders painting. Because it was getting, it's like another star on your badge, you know.
Okay. The name has always been important. How did you come up with the name Raz?
So there was a Quincy Jones song. It was called Razzmatazz. And if a lot of people ever remember that song, I figured, you know what, I think I could use that name. I didn't know, because we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have any of that shit. There was an R-O-Z, Raz. And then there was a Raz on the one line. But he was just bombing insides. He didn't do trains. So I felt comfortable enough to say, you know what, fuck this. I'm going to take this name, make it mine. Up until recently, I met this other Raz, a Puerto Rican kid also, in one of the shows up in recently over here in the Bronx that Bio put together. And it was an honor to meet him and respect him because he had the name before me. But then he gave me the honor because I carried that name with full, you know, full blown privilege because of the work that I had put through at that time. So, you know, that Raz was part of that. So I didn't feel like if somebody else wrote it.
Okay. Who was the first writer you met when you started, and how did y'all meet?
The first writer I met was, like I said, was Dez on 125th Street, looking at that train. He was the first writer, and it was just briefly, momentarily. But writer per se, rest in peace, Per. Per and I went to high school together. Dero and I went to high school together. And those were kind of like the writers that I started hanging out with. And before that, you know, after that, it's like you're meeting Sin, you're meeting, you know, Scene, you're meeting the United Artists. United Artists was like popular over there in the Bronx. So it was like, what can I do to be at that level?
Okay. I assume you was in high school around this time. So what school did you go to, and were there any other writers that went to the school with you?
Yeah, I went to Lehman High School. I went to Lehman High School. I was there, and during my time there, Dero was going to Lehman High School. Another kid named Wuzzer, he was super cool. He didn't bomb as much, but he got up and we gave him a lot of respect. Uh, Scene was there probably 3 years before I was. I'm not sure if Duster was there, but during my time, those were the people that I pretty much got around with painting with. You know, with Per and Dero.
Okay. What crews are you down with?
I'm always gonna identify as Tats. That's always. You know, other writers have like, yeah, you want to do this, you want to do that. It's like just recently, I had a conversation with Scene, and unless you were put down with that crew from him, then you were just kind of like, but I've always identified as Tats Crew.
Tats Crew.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned Tats Crew. How did you get put down with them? And can you remember the first member?
Yeah,
you met and
the
who put
first
you down with the
member,
crew?
the first member was the president of Tats Crew, Brim. Brim used to come around Castle Hill selling paint. I remember one time I went with Brim. We got on the train and went all the way down to Soundview and all the way down to his house and came back with garbage bags full of paint that he was gonna go sell on Castle Hill. And we got on the bus and the bag broke. Right on the bus, and the bus driver was looking at us, and it was just like a moment. But Brim was the first member that I met of the Tats Crew, and I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know if that was Tats Crew at that point. Because after a while, Brim and I really didn't talk much. And then, little by little, things started happening again where I meet Bio, and then I meet BG, and then I meet Nicer, and then I meet Mac, and then I moved to Kingsbridge, and then Ken and I live like right next to each other, and Cem. So, little by little, that's what formed all 9 members of what we call the Tats Crew. We've had other writers come in the group that we've always considered them Tats Crew, but there's 9 members.
So that was the original members of Tats Crew at the time?
Yeah. We also have Volcan. Volcan was always considered Tats Crew for us.
Okay, you painted with Cem and Mac a lot. How did you meet those guys?
Oh, so this all happened when that whole summer of whatever, 82, we went on I lived in Kingsbridge. I was next to the Ghost Yard. And that's when I knew Ken, and then I met Ken. I'm gonna say I met Ken through Per, and then Cem through Ken. But I lived by the Ghost Yard, and that year it was just like I meet T Kid, and it was like having a easy pass to the Ghost Yard. But then, as you know, we all started bonding together. It was like a camaraderie of graffiti writers that we knew was a Tats Crew. So the
Okay.
Ghost Yard was
The playground.
the playground.
Okay, what was your favorite car you pulled off with them?
With the Tats Crew. So Mac and I did one. It was a Mac with a Jest, and I did that for Jest UA. And Shane did a spaceman character for us. That was a really nice top to bottom. I pulled out I remember Bio rocked this out on. It was a Raz Bionic and Ken, which is like pink, stuff like that. And that was always a favorite car. It was simple letters, nothing crazy, no full blown car, but it was something very simple. So that car has always been close to heart.
Okay, you mentioned Shane 125. What was it like painting with Shane, and how did y'all meet?
Anthony and I, so I'm gonna say that I was like, if this was considered dating, I was a little whore, because I would paint one summer with Mac, and then the next summer I pick a different partner and I go paint with Shane, and then I go cheat on Shane with Scene, and then after that I go back to Mac. So yeah, it was weird meeting all these different guys at the same time, but painting with each and every one of them, like Shane, especially Shane. Shane's a very talented artist, man. Like his art is definitely something that you could say, you know, he's in the top of these graph riders that can anytime
Yeah,
do his
Shane
shit,
rocks it.
and it's always gonna be acknowledged and recognized.
Okay. Did you ever go to the writer's bench at 149th Street? And
Yeah.
who were some of the names that you remember from those days?
Okay, so the writers' bench, when we officially started becoming part of the Tats crew, that's when I would roll there. Before that, I never had any interest of going there. I always looked at it like it was like if you go there, you get beat up, or if you go there, you get robbed. But again, it wasn't anything like that for me. You know, if I ever had any beef, I had people who took care of shit for me. I had people who took care of shit because I was like a skinny little nothing, you know. But I had people that always looked out for me. Pearl looked out for me. Mack looked out for me. Bio would look out for me. So I was like, yo, when am I gonna fight? Oh shit, wait a minute, let me not fight. I'm gonna get beat up. So, you know. But it was the first time I went to the bench. Yeah, I remember my first time going there.
Do you have any stories from the bench?
I met Snow, SNO there. First time I met any rider there at the bench was Snow. And he had another rider with him. I can't remember who it was. It was one of his partners too. And then I ended up meeting G-Man at the bench.
I think G-Man is actually the guy that taught Cem, if I'm not mistaken. Or it might have been Smiley.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, so that kind of gave me a little more comfort that, you know, it wasn't like that to go to the bench.
Yeah.
You know, if you let them see your soft spot, then you were bound to get, you know,
Like
you have a
dogs.
bad day.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I think I didn't have a bad day, you know, but that wasn't part of my thought process. It was just go there and look at trains roll by.
Okay, what lines did you write on, and did you king any?
I love the 6 line. I think I did more the 6 line than any other line, the 2 and the 5s. So I tell you, I did the 2, the 4, the 5s. I never did a 3. I did a 1. I did a double R. I did a double R with Duster UA. We went up there one night and we had pictures of it, but I had pictures of it and they got lost. But I was predominantly 6 line, 2 and the 5s.
Okay, what were some of your favorite layups to hit back in the days?
Definitely Soundview and Esplanade. Those are 2 of the different layups that I love. Yards, Ghost Yard. Ghost Yard was just like being in your living room. You can put the shit down, go drink something, come back. But we had to know the hours there. Those were part of the privileges of being able to go in there.
Okay, so what were your peak years on the subway?
82, 86. 82, 86 was my peak year. You know, and then I went 86. I went pretty hard with Scene. You know, we did When It Rains It Pours. That was one of our cars. We did a full car with spray cans coming down. And that was a Much Psycho and a Raz, which was a really nice car. I did a Raz with an Angel in the middle. We did a back-to-back car. It was a Raz, a Mad Scene, and a PJ. I did like a background with space and planets and all kinds of shit like that. That was a good car too. And then I painted with K's FBA 2 cars. We did 2 back one week, and then we did it again. So those were the years that I said I pretty much went hard on it, and then I disappeared and left to Puerto Rico.
Okay. During the 80s, the one tunnel could be pretty tough. Did you have any memorable experiences there?
Never, but I used to hear like you had to be careful there because there was a crew called the Ball Busters.
Did you ever have any run-ins with them?
No, never did because then I go back to, wait a minute, I lived in Washington Heights, so I knew some of these people. So those people knew other people. So I didn't have any fear. And it wasn't part of the era when I was in the graph game. It was part of the era when I was a young kid walking around with a fucking boombox and how these people remember. So all of these things kind of come into content later in life.
Okay.
It's like saying like, don't shit where you eat.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I heard Tats CRU rode pretty deep. Was that really a thing back then where everybody was like really territorial?
Tats Crew, we were like, we were the shit back then. We were the shit back then. We really had our shit on lockdown there. Everywhere we went. Everywhere we went. So it wasn't a territorial thing.
Okay, who were some of the crew's biggest competition or rivalries on the subways back then?
Back then, so FBA was doing their shit. FC was doing their shit too. I mean, those are two of the crews right there that were pretty much going at it. West, and his crew, and then Serve and his crew were going back at it too. Scene was kind of like a one-man show. So it was either, you
Are you
didn't
talking
compete.
about Richie or Rupert?
Scene, Richie.
Okay,
Rupert also had his work out there too, but he also did little solos.
okay.
But Scene UA, he was a one-man show. So if you look at the crews that were back then, it was United Artists, FBA, FC, and then some others that I won't remember. But yeah, those were the ones that were always going to stand out.
Okay, you mentioned Scene. How did you end up linking up with Scene UA?
So I lived in Castle Hill for that time, and Scene had his family owned a beer distributor. And back then, that time, I used to skateboard, and I always wanted like have the bottom of my skateboard done because I used to hang out with Kid Panama. And Panama was also a graffiti rider too, and I wanted to have a hot looking skateboard, and I wanted Scene to paint the backside of it like a skull with all kinds of shit. It got lost. He never did it. He lost it, but you know what? Scene was always cool just to hang with him there and be there while he's painting canvas. It was enough. Later in life, we ended up painting, but before we even took it to that level that we painted, it was more of a friendship.
How did you meet Scene? And what was your favorite car with Scene?
My favorite car with Scene, we did a Raz and an Apache in '84. We had like one of those. It was like a comic, not Cheech. There was some other comic back then, and he did like, with the brush, and that was a really nice car. And then we did a Raz Apache with a black and orange background. That car was hot too. So we did some really nice productions, and I tell you what, those were those are some times when I was already kind of like saying I was at my prime when I was painting at that point.
Oh, nice.
I didn't care about who I was gonna go paint. It was like what I was gonna go paint.
Okay. What was your memories of the Ghost Yard?
There's a lot of good memories, and I don't think I ever had a memory where we got raided or we had to run away. Maybe the train left us. But memories, yeah, I could say a lot of memories that, I wouldn't want to put here on video, but there are memories where some people lost their paint, some people lost a valuable camera maybe, shit like that. Some people left with a beat down. But yeah, but those are memories from the Ghost Yard, But it was like like I said, being in the Ghost Yard was like painting and being in your living room. You can just go sit down, watch TV, and come back. That's how it felt in the Ghost Yard.
Okay. How did you meet T Kid, and what was your favorite car that you did with T Kid?
I never painted a train with T Kid. I painted a wall in Puerto Rico with T Kid. We painted a wall in Santurce a while back. This is how we connected with Ski.
Okay.
Through,
Rest in peace.
Yeah, but I connected with T-Kid through Ken and Cem. And it became a really cool vibe with them, like people were afraid of him and this and that, but, it ended up being like, what, I have much respect for him. For a lot of other people out there, and I never felt intimidated. Like people used to say, like, "Yo, here comes T, he's gonna head crack you, this or that." I just figured, what, let me not go down that avenue and find out what that's about, So we painted only in Puerto Rico, I think maybe once or twice.
Okay. I know you have a few raid stories, so tell us your favorite raid story and who was involved.
One of my great stories was when we went racking for paint. We went to, it was a spot, I think Mack turned us on to it. It was in New Jersey, Squirrel Wood, New Jersey. So I go with Ken. I go with Per. I think we took Pure, and we went in my mother's 1976 Dodge, some shit like that.
The
We
Dodge.
we we racked so much paint it couldn't fit in the trunk anymore. The car was literally like this, inclined, and it started raining.
Oh
The
shit.
water got into the car in the back seat. That's how much paint we had. That was just like bananas. We were walking in there full of paint and boxes of paint. Like if we were purchasing this stuff. And then we found out other things. We're getting clothes, boots, you name it, the whole 9 yards. This is this is probably one of my best stories from a memory of how getting paint was so easy. How we went out to these neighborhoods and far away and got paint. Getting chased. I got chased one time in the Esplanade with Pone, Per, Eon, and this other kid we call Paulie Dime Dropper. He got caught and he dime dropped on us. I didn't want to. I didn't go to. I was going to Lehman at that point, but I didn't go to school for like about a week, trying to
Avoid.
lay low.
Yeah.
Well, he never really did dime drop on us, but they said he did. Yeah, but that we got chased out of there. That was a very nice call we did, which ended up making a book by it's called Instant Recognition, and in there, that was kind of like one of the first times that I painted a car with Poem, and it got crossed out. Some kid named Nike, and he wrote all kinds of racial shit on it. Later, I found out that Poem and some other people went and fucked him up at Columbus High School. But we redid that car again. Instead of turquoise, we did red outlines, and we rocked that car. It was a really nice car.
Okay.
That was a really good time with painting with Poem also.
Okay. Who was your favorite person to paint with, and what was the best train that y'all pulled out, in your opinion?
Definitely, train wise, I never had a favorite. It was always a matter of, how each and every one of us can compliment each other as we're going on. Like I would compliment, like if I painted with Mac, I'd be like, yo, that shit is tight, do this, do that. If I painted with Nicer, he'd say, do this, do that. When I painted with Scene, I remember me doing fill-ins for his piece. It's like, yo, you actually painting with this dude. You're doing this shit and he's complimenting you on your shit. So yeah, I had a lot of favorite writers. But definitely every one of them was something different.
Unique.
It was unique that you could say, what you respect and you appreciate the time that you painted with these people.
Okay. Did you ever battle someone on the train, and if so, who was it, and what was the outcome?
I never battled anybody. I felt like I did battle K's FBA.
Kaze?
Yeah, K's
Okay.
Frankie, super cool guy, super amazing person, man. And I felt like if we was battling him and we did 2 cars. I think like one first week and then the second one the second week, and we did the same outlines, but this time like the color schemes that I picked definitely burned his, but then he burned me on the other one. So we were kind of like even, but it wasn't a battle. It was just like, let's go out and make this car look good. But I never battled anybody. Never. I was never into that shit. It's just having fun.
Is there someone that you wanted to paint with but never got a chance to?
Yeah. There is a person that I would really like to paint with. Definitely there's a person I would like to paint with, and it goes back to, and that's Kaz.
207?
207.
Okay.
And that goes back to seeing his cars with the B-boys and all that stuff, because that shit was just like, that's what you call real graffiti. You put characters in there, that's the afros and all that shit. And yeah, it was with Kaz actually. I had that Broadway style, that style that was like, where lettering was becoming more like abstract looking and whatever. So yeah, it was Kaz.
Okay. So we covered a lot today. Is there something you wanted to cover that we might have missed?
No, I think we covered a lot. Like I say, I've been very grateful for the experience of doing this stuff and painting with these people. you know, and having conversations with people. And now in life, at this point in life, you know, we sit down and we talk more about life than we talk about graph. You know, because it was an episode in your life that you went through, and then you know you kind of like turn the page, and then you know. But no, other than that, you know, I'm glad that I'm grateful for the people that I painted with.
Okay. Anybody you want to shout out that deserve mention that normally don't get mentioned in like these interviews that deserve mentioning?
Well, you know, everybody, you know, everybody that has crossed paths with me, you know, I hope I mention you guys, you know, but always give a shout out to my family, the Tats crew, Seeing You Way, you know, Shame 125, Poem, and you know, and eventually, you know, there's one other guy out here, you know, that serve FBA. That dude has, you know, always been very, very real to me. When you come up to him and talk to him, you know, those are people that, you know, you're always gonna say like they were part of you. And Per effects, I was a brother of mine.
Rest in peace.
I was a brother of mine, rest in peace, you know.
Okay, well, we came to the part of the interview. It's called Deadly Seven. This is where you name your top 7 writers of all time. No particular order, in your opinion.
No style, no nothing. Top 7.
Top
if
7.
I had a poster of each of one of them
Yes.
on there,
Whatever you want.
Shit.
Any
yeah, so I'm gonna
criteria.
I'm gonna put Bio up there.
Okay.
BG. I'm gonna put Nicer up there. I'm gonna put T-Kid up there. I'm gonna put Senor up there. I'm gonna put Duster, and I'm gonna put Dondi.
Okay, that's your 7.
That's my 7 right there.
All right, I appreciate the interview.
Awesome, thank
Raz Tats CRU.
you. Peace.
Peace.